Empire.
Welcome to Inside the Cap. I'm your host, Joel Corey. You can find me on Twitter at Corey Joel. That's CORRYJOEL. And also read my regular CBSSports.com column, Agents Take on NFL, Salary Cap, and Contract Matters. This time we're going to look at two things. Brian Flores' bombshell lawsuit and also Tom Brady's retirement. Yesterday, Tuesday, was a very eventful news day in NFL circles. First, we had Tom Brady retire, announce it formally, and also Brian Flores, former Dolphins head coach, file a class action lawsuit against the NFL and three teams in particular, the Miami Dolphins, Denver Broncos, and New York Giants, on the first day of Black History Month, alleging discriminatory hiring practices. I read all 58 pages of the lawsuit. Figured I should, one, out of curiosity, and two, if I was ever going to talk about it, should be knowledgeable about what he's alleging. I'm not surprised that there is this type of lawsuit, given the lack of black head coaches in the NFL, and that there were three black head coaches when the Rooney Rule started in 2003, and as of now there's just one. I'm surprised that it's Brian Flores being the guy to file the lawsuit. I thought it might be one of the older coaches who wouldn't be potentially committing career suicide because they've been a head coach before and they don't have quite as much to lose as Flores. It's very interesting. He didn't wait for the end of his hiring cycle, and he is a finalist, or at least was a finalist, for two head coaching jobs that are still available, the Saints opening and the Texans opening. There's still 5 openings still available, and the Dolphins obviously are one. I said Saints and the Texans. The Vikings also have an opening as well, and the Jaguars, a job that Shad Khan can't give away, primarily because of Trent Baalke's presence as general manager. Seems like the straw that broke the camel's back for Flores was the text message he got from his former boss, Bill Belichick, congratulating him on getting the Giants job 3 days before his in-person interview. It was a mistaken text. It was meant for another Pat's former assistant, Brian Daboll, who was the Bills' offensive coordinator, who did get the job. A couple of other allegations which caught my eye. One, he alleged that he was asked to tank in the first season as a Dolphins head coach by owner Stephen Ross and was offered $100,000 per loss that he rejected. That could open up a whole other can of worms. And then we had Hugh Jackson pretty much say that the Browns were giving out bonuses or offering bonuses to do the same thing in 2016 and 17. And also the sham interview allegation, where there's just a interview of a black head coach to satisfy the Rooney Rule, which now requires 2 African-American head coaches, candidates, I should say, for any opening. That's something which been going on for a long time. He said that Joe Ellis and John Elway looked like they'd been out the night before drinking and showed up completely disheveled and late for his interview. Not surprisingly and predictably, the teams he specifically mentioned have pushed back against the allegations, and the NFL called Flores' claims without merit. Now, what did you expect them to do? You got me, smoking gun. You're right. No. I'm not going to be surprised that you're going to see stuff coming out negatively. Negative information about Flores, his coaching ability, and his work ethic. That's probably going to be coming down the pipe soon. And I'm expecting the NFL to put up a vigorous fight. So we'll see what happens. Now, as I said, this is the nuclear option, and giving the lack of hiring, and some of the statistics are pretty damning. It's not a surprise that we had this type of lawsuit, because if you look at some of the statistics, 2021 season, you had 4 black offensive coordinators, 11 defensive coordinators, that's 34%. 3 of the 32 teams had black quarterback coach. So if you don't have black offensive coordinators or black quarterback coaches, then you don't have a sufficient number of people in the pipeline from that capacity. Now, I'm curious to see how much public support that Flores is going to get as opposed to private support. It's going to be very easy for black head coaches, general managers to support him privately. Publicly, different story. I want to see how many other people join the lawsuit. Now, the Fritz Pollard Alliance, which promotes the advancement of minority candidates, has come out and publicly supported Flores. I think that Flores, were a white guy, would already have another head coaching job, because he's the first Dolphins head coach since Dave Wannstedt in the 2002 and 2003 seasons to have consecutive winning seasons. Last 2 seasons, Flores 10-6, then 9-8, get off to a horrible start this year. So he's 19-14 over the past 2 seasons. One thing we have seen this year, which to me is more important than having black head coaches, is having black people in position of power. We've had 2 black GMs hired, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah of Minnesota Vikings and Ryan Poles of the Chicago Bears. Now, the Bears went out and hired a first-time head coach, Colts defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus, and Jim Harbaugh is considered to be a favorite for the Minnesota job. Now, we haven't seen yet one of the 2 new black GM hires hire a black head coach. Now, if they went out the box and did that, I think there would be mainstream criticism of hiring a black head coach. Could be wrong about that, and I'm going to make an analogy of what I think might happen. There'd be certain segments of society who, just like with Joe Biden pledging to put a black woman on the Supreme Court, calling that woman, whoever she may be, unqualified, that would happen here. And if you look at it from the Supreme Court aspect, this is what I find curious to me. That same segment of society had no problem with Donald Trump signaling he's going to put a woman on the Supreme Court to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg when she passed away. They were praising that particular pick. And the woman who replaced Bader Ginsburg, Amy Coney Barrett, is the most inexperienced Supreme Court nominee in modern history because she spent most of her personal life in academia. So hopefully, if and when a black general manager, a new one, hires a black head coach, hopefully I'm wrong about that. Now, one thing I didn't realize from reading the lawsuit is that since the Rooney Rule was instituted, that we've had 15 black head coaches in 20 years. That's abysmal. The fact that we even needed a Rooney Rule to begin with, that's sad as well. Well, to me, the NFL, at least the modern NFL, has lagged behind other major professional sports in this regard. I'm not talking about Fritz Pollard being a head coach back in the early 1920s. I'm talking about after black people were denied playing in the NFL, and then the color barrier was broken in I think 1946. That NFL. In 1975, in the NBA, we had 2 black head coaches as coaching in the NBA Finals for the then Washington Bullets, now Wizards, K.C. Jones. For the Golden State Warriors, Al Attles. We didn't see that in the NFL until 2006, till Tony Dungy of the Colts, and Lovie Smith of the Chicago Bears. The first black head coach was in 1989, Art Shell of the Raiders. 60s, you had Bill Russell be a player head coach and win championships with the Boston Celtics. He replaced Red Auerbach. He was a player coach. First black manager, Frank Robinson in 1975 with the Cleveland Indians. And speaking of Tony Dungy, pre-Rooney Rule, he had a long wait to become a head coach. Spent 15 years as an assistant. In the early 90s, he was a defensive coordinator of very good, one of the best defenses in the NFL, the Minnesota Vikings. Didn't get a head coaching job until 1996 with Tampa Bay. And I remember that there were criticisms about him not getting a head coaching job. What does he have to do? Then it would be leaked he's a bad interviewer. He's too soft-spoken to be a head coach. Tony Dungy is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame as a head coach. One thing I do know is you aren't going to see a journeyman black quarterback first. There aren't many journeyman black quarterbacks. There aren't many of them to begin with. It's kind of an oxymoron. Get the Josh McCown treatment. Josh McCown looks like he could be the next Houston Texans head coach. He may turn out to be a great head coach. But Josh McCown has zero coaching experience at the collegiate or professional level. When you say journeyman black quarterback, the guy that comes to mind to me is Josh Johnson, because he's kind of bounced around everywhere. I think he's 35 now. When he hangs up his career, nobody's going to immediately put him in the pipeline and put him on the fast track to be a head coach. That doesn't happen to black people. Another thing doesn't happen to black people. The Cliff Kingsbury treatment. Cliff Kingsbury fails forward. Texas Tech, he was losing 3 straight losing seasons before he got fired. 35-40 record overall. Then he immediately becomes the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. Not going to happen to a black man. I don't see anybody beating down the door to give the keys to the kingdom to Reggie Barlow. I'm sure, who the hell is Reggie Barlow? Oh, Reggie Barlow, full disclosure, was a client of mine. Played 8 years in the NFL as a wide receiver. Then went back to his alma mater. Became the quarterback's coach at Alabama State back in 2005. The late Tavares Jackson became a second-round pick under his tutelage. He's been a head coach at HBCUs for the past 12 years. 83-58 record as a head coach. If he wants to make the transition from the collegiate ranks to the NFL, probably got to be a receivers coach. And then hopefully try to work his way up the NFL ranks. That's just the reality of how it works. Black head coaches versus white head coaches, at least in my opinion. And just kind of mirrors general life. It's not what you know, it's who you know. Sometimes I think I'd rather be a well-connected idiot than a brilliant person or a genius who doesn't know anybody. The well-connected idiot is always going to get a job. Curious to see where this thing goes and what actually happens. I'll be shocked if Brian Flores gets a head coaching job from the two teams that still view him as a candidate. That would be an easy solution, and I'm not really anticipating there being more than one black head coach at the end of this hiring cycle. So something I tweeted a couple of weeks may actually come to fruition. I said that the Houston Texans replacing David Culley with Josh McCown and Mike Tomlin being the NFL's only black head coach at the NFL hiring cycle wouldn't surprise me. I would love to be wrong about that. So we'll see. So what does Brian Flores want? One, he wants economic damages, and he wants punitive damages. He also laid out some specific remedies that he wanted, which would be injunctive relief. There are 5 points he wanted to see specifically addressed: increase the influence of black individuals in the hiring and termination decisions for GMs, head coaches, and coordinators; increase the objectivity of hiring and termination decisions for black GMs, head coaches, and coordinators; increase the number of black coordinators; incentivize the hiring and retention of black head coaches, GMs, and coordinators through compensation; complete transparency with respect to pay for all GMs, head coaches, and coordinators. Now, it's a shame that we're at the point where we have to have a lawsuit, but that may be the only thing which brings about change. He may be the change agent, and his career is sacrificed. I really hope he's got his I's dotted and T's crossed, because if what he's saying has holes in it, it's going to do more harm than good, in my opinion. Be interesting to see if the NFL wants to settle, and whether he wants to settle or he wants to take this thing to the fullest extent, because monetary damages aren't really what he's looking for. He's looking to bring about change. This is going to be an ongoing story and is not going away anytime soon.
This winter, there's something for everyone with the Disney Bundle. Unforgettable stories on Disney Plus, like Marvel Studios' Eternals.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
And Disney's Encanto.
This is my chance.
Fan favorites on Hulu like Pen 15 and The Great. And epic sports on ESPN Plus like Man in the Arena, Tom Brady, and over 1,000 NHL games. Get the Disney Bundle today for only $13.99 a month. Includes Hulu ad-supported plan. Access content from each service separately. Terms apply. See thedisneybundle.com for details.
This episode is brought to you by DirecTV Stream. Introducing DirecTV Stream, the best of live TV and on demand, which means you can get all your favorite sports, movies, and shows together, so you can watch new episodes of your favorite reality shows live or binge old episodes on demand. Either way, get ready for some drama. And the best part? DirecTV Stream has no annual contract. DirecTV Stream. Get your TV together at directtv.com. Requires high-speed internet and compatible device. Content varies by package and location. Restrictions apply.
Now on to Tom Brady. ESPN kind of stole Tom Brady's thunder about his career decision on Saturday when it was leaked that he was going to retire. Then there were some pushback where he called the Bucs, tell them I've made a decision. His agent puts out a statement that there's no decision yet. Tuesday formally announced his retirement. It's actually a little bit of surprise, and everyone got a hint that it could be coming because Tom Brady was non-committal after divisional playoff loss to the Rams about playing next season. He's been saying for the past several years that he could play until he was at least 45. When he was in his late 30s, people thought he was crazy because he hadn't seen a quarterback play at an extremely high level into his mid-40s. And everyone just assumed Tom Brady was going to crash and burn like everybody else. That didn't happen. Tom Brady had an MVP caliber season this year. I expect Aaron Rodgers is going to be named MVP, and Brady is going to end up second in the voting. Led the league in passing yards, had a career high of 5,316 yards, and also led in touchdown passes with 43. So people really thinking Brady would fulfill his long-stated goal to play till he's 45. Last Monday, the day after the loss on his Let's Go podcast, he said it's not necessarily what he wants, but what we want as a family. And in character, he used the word satisfied to describe the Buccaneers' accomplishments this year. Those aren't Brady-like words for someone who's going to keep playing, because normally you'd ask Tom Brady, he'd unequivocally go, you know what, I'm back for next year. Now, what does this do for Tampa Bay cap-wise? First of all, Tom Brady signed an extension last year to free up $19.3 million in cap space so they could keep the band together and try to make another run at a Super Bowl. The extension added 3 voting dummy years, 23 through 2025. So you could prorate his fully guaranteed fifth-day league year roster bonus over the 5 years and his $20 million signing bonus over 5 years instead of just 2. it's a 1-year extension for just under $28 million. Now, with respect to the roster bonus, Tampa Bay doesn't have any rights to that because he'd have to have some sort of breach or default in the year the roster bonus was earned, 2021. Now, signing bonus, that's a different question. Tampa Bay can't have rights back to the signing bonus. And then the way the signing bonus payment was structured, $15 million of it is due on or before February 4th. That's Friday. So technically he's owed that money. He got $5 million last March 31st. Technically he is owed that money. And then Tampa Bay theoretically could ask for it back, or they could withhold the payment because the typical forfeiture provisions, which apply to practically any signing bonus, are in Brady's contract, and Tampa also has the right to that it's agreed and understood that players waiver rights to certain unpaid amounts and players' obligation to repay certain amounts of the signing bonus are express provisions of this contract, and but for the provisions contained herein, the contract would not have been executed. Player hereby expressly authorizes club in its sole discretion to deduct and set off at any time from time to time any or all part of sums owed to player, firm, club for any current or deferred future wages, bonuses, performance-based pay, postseason pay, severance pay, termination pay. It has a laundry list of stuff. Recovery of any forfeit amount will be made in accordance with the applicable provisions of Article 4, Section 9 of the Collective Bargaining Agreement. That's typically in every signing bonus, or some variation of that is in any signing bonus. Now, how is this going to affect Tampa Bay's cap? Well, Brady was scheduled to make $10,395,588 in 2022. I'm not talking about the deferred signing bonus payment, on a $20,270,588 cap number. He's going to have his $8.925 million base salary. It's guaranteed for injury. It's scheduled to become fully guaranteed on the 5th day of the waiver period, February 18th. And there's a $1,470,588 17th game roster bonus. Now, guarantee voids with retirement, so you don't have to worry about that becoming guaranteed. Now, the thing is, I don't know how this $15 million gets treated if they don't pay it. Because Saturday when the announcement or the news leaked the retirement, I consulted some of my most trusted sources that worked for teams. They weren't exactly sure how it'd be treated by the league if they withheld the payment, because their consensus was he's entitled to the payment, and then if they wanted to exercise their rights to recapture or recoup money, they could. If they thought that Tampa could withhold the payment, they weren't sure if they get a huge cap credit all this year in 2022 of the $15 million, or it would be a 2023 cap credit. So there's a gray area. It depends on how the league would treat that $15 million. So we don't know definitively how it will work depending upon what Tampa does with the $15 million. So let's go over what would be the traditional case where they pay the money and then there's an obligation, then they have the right to get it back. So if you put Brady on the reserve retired list immediately, Tampa can't do that because where they are cap-wise. According to NFLPA data for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they got 46 players under contract. And this is with NFLPA website list. $189.992 million in 22 cap commitments. That a little over $1.425 million of cap space to carry over to a 2022 league year. The top 51 salaries count against the cap in the offseason. So once you got 5 more players to fill out the top 51, that would put Tampa at about $15.5 million under what's going to be the expected salary cap of $208.2 million, which is the ceiling the NFL and NFLPA agreed to last May. So you got $15.5 million of cap space, and you've got from the signing bonus and the roster bonus, you got $40 million that's prorated from 2021 to 2025. You got $32 million of proration. So you can't handle $32 million of proration hitting the cap now with a retirement where they process it before June 2nd. Because you do that, you're going to lose too much cap space to do that. Because if you got Brady at $20.3 million of a cap hit, and you've got $32 million of dead money coming in, math-wise, that just doesn't work. Because you're going to lose $11,721,412 of cap space, and if you've only got $15 million, that's going to of cap space, you're basically going to lose most of your cap space. You're going to be less than $4 million under the cap. Not going to happen. So, what can Tampa Bay do in this instance? Well, we saw what happened with Drew Brees last year. Saints had about an overage of $110 million this time last year. Had to shave that to get off the cap. Did that. One of the things they did do, in the Buccaneers could take a page out of the Drew Brees retirement book when he announced his retirement last March. In late February, they reduced his $25 million 2021 base salary to $1.075 million. That's his league minimum base salary. So they could pick up $23.925 million cap space immediately. They carried him on the roster till June 11th, and that prevented $11.5 million in bonus proration from Brees' 22 and 2023 cap years from becoming a 2021 cap charge. This $11.5 million is 2022 dead money, salary cap charge for a player no longer on the roster. Now, what Brady could do is work with Tampa, drop his league minimum base salary to his league minimum of $1.12 million, eliminate the roster bonus and the $1.875 million of incentives that are classified as likely to be earned, and counting on the cap. Tampa would get $11,150,588 of immediate cap relief. Then, after June 1, June 2nd, or whenever, they could place him on the reserve retired list, and they'd get an additional $1.12 million of cap room from his base salary being coming off the books. There'd be an $8 million cap charge of dead money in 2022, and then Tampa would have a $24 million cap hit in 2023. Assuming the $15 million payment isn't withheld, that's the route I expect Tampa to go with Brady. Now, are they going to give him a $16 million parting gift? Because they'd be entitled to $16 million back of the signing bonus, because you have 4 years of what would be considered unearned signing bonus from the proration of 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025. Now, teams vary in how they handle bonus recapture. That's the reason Calvin Johnson and the Lions aren't on good terms. When he retired in 2016, they asked for $1.6 million back from him. The 49ers asked for money back when people retire. They had a really good linebacker a few years ago, third-round pick Chris Borland, came in, had concussions, retired after 1 year. They got 3/4 of his signing bonus back because he had a 4-year rookie deal, made him pay it back, 3/4 of it. When Patrick Willis retired in 2015, and Willis is Hall of Fame finalist this year, he had to give an undisclosed sum of money back. The Seattle Seahawks didn't ask for money back with Marshawn Lynch with his initial retirement in 2016, and Lynch had signed an extension he never played under in 2015 for $7.5 million signing bonus. Now, foregoing the $16 million would be a small price for Tampa to pay, considering after signing him, they ended a 13-year playoff drought. He got their second Super Bowl win in franchise history. Both those things coincide with his arrival. Now, the average fan is going to be like, for Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, they'll be like, screw that. Let's get the $16 million of cap space back. It wouldn't be a lump sum if we're talking this way under the collective bargaining agreement rules. The way the collective bargaining agreement works, Brady would only be retired to repay $4 million by June 1st in each respective year. And you don't get a cap credit when you ask to recoup money until the money's actually received. So when each June 1 came up in those years, Brady had to pay back $4 million, and the Bucs would get the $4 million cap credit at that time. Now, what I don't know is with the $15 million, if they withhold it, how that's going to work. Since you're getting all the cash, since it's money not paid and it's cash realized now, I suspect that you might get better treatment than how it is in the CBA, under the letter of CBA of how it conventionally would work. Now, what would really be fair to me is Brady only added the 3 dummy voiding years because he was trying to help out the Bucs on the cap to lower the 2021 cap number so they could re-sign players. So really it's supposed to be a 2-year extension. So absent the voiding dummy years, the proration would have been $10 million for 2021, $10 million for 2022. So really, Tampa shouldn't be entitled to more than $10 million money. That would be fair to me. If they gave him the $16 million back, that'd be fine too. Wouldn't let him keep it, paid it, didn't ask for anything back. One way to avoid all this is you have no rights to money if you cut somebody instead of putting them on the reserve retired list. So and I'm assuming they're going to take the Drew Brees approach. So let's say June 2nd, if they cut him, non-issue, they wouldn't be entitled to anything if they'd made the payment of the $15 million. I don't know if Brady would process retirement papers fast enough so there wouldn't be a payment obligation. We'll see. One thing we do know is that Tampa's got a ton of free agents this year. They got 23 unrestricted free agents, some very important players. Carlton Davis, who might get a franchise tag, Leonard Fournette, Chris Godwin, Rob Gronkowski, center Ryan Jensen, Jason Pierre-Paul, and Ndamukong Suh. They're all unrestricted free agents. Gronkowski only came out of retirement because Tom Brady coaxed him out of retirement. We'll see if he goes back into retirement. Tampa has said they want him back. Leonard Fournette says he took significantly less money to come back to Tampa on a 1-year deal for $3 million, maxed out with some incentives. He played well enough this year. He was on the verge of 1,000 yards before he got hurt. Would have a 1,000-yard season. Was leading the NFL running backs in receptions when he got hurt his hamstring late in the year. He's probably a guy that should look to get his one cash grab. Chris Godwin played under the franchise tag last year. Had an ACL tear late in the year. Probably not going to get another franchise tag. They want him back. The knee injury I don't think is going to hurt him. If anything, it'll affect the contract structurally. If I'm him, I'm asking for $20 million per year. If you pay him that, you got a Mike Evans problem because he signed a deal like 4 years ago, averaging a little over $16 million per year. Then you're probably going to have to contend with that. Him being unhappy. Ryan Jensen, when he got to Tampa, became the highest paid center in the league. Some people thought he played better than any center this year. He's probably going to think he should be right up there at the top of the center market, which is $13.5 million per year. Frank Ragnow, Corey Linsley had become the highest paid center in free agency at $12.5 million, and that didn't last long. So Tampa's got that to contend with. And then who's going to be the quarterback to replace Tom Brady? If you've got this type of cap dynamic and you're talking about trying to get a quarterback through trade, that gets difficult. One, you got a couple of quarterbacks who would need to waive no trade clauses, Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson. You need $35 million of cap space for Deshaun Watson. Yeah, you can restructure contracts to get there, but given everything Tampa has to do, good luck with that. Russell Wilson's under contract for $50 million for 2 years. It's got a $5 million fifth day of the league year roster bonus. So if he's going to force a trade, it's probably going to be early, sooner rather than later. Because once Seattle pays the $5 million, they're going to want an arm and a leg for him anyway. And we know the Texans want 3 firsts and 2 seconds or the equivalent for Deshaun Watson. Seattle's going to want a lot for Russell Wilson. You got to have $24 million. You got to have to be able to accommodate his $24 million he's supposed to make. Goes down to 19 if the roster bonus is a Seattle payment obligation. And there's Aaron Rodgers. 22 is his contract year. We don't know whether he wants to stay in Green Bay or he's going to force his way out. Denver's someplace he supposedly wanted to go last year. You're going to need almost $27.5 million of cap space to accommodate Rodgers. Then there's Jimmy Garoppolo, who expects to be traded in the final year of his contract. He's making $25.6 million this year. Different type of compensation you would need a draft capital to give up for Jimmy Garoppolo. Still $25.6 million to absorb his final year of his contract. And then Derek Carr, we'll see how the new regime with the Raiders, with the New England connections, Dave Ziegler, Josh McDaniel, feel about Carr, but he's making just under $19.9 in his contract year. So those would be the trade candidates who are going to be mentioned most often. You got Kyle Trask, who you drafted in the second round in the 2021 draft. Bruce Arians has an affinity for Blaine Gabbert, who's an unrestricted free agent, but he's not a long-term answer to be a starting quarterback. And then you could go into the free agent market, but not a great group. You got former first-round picks who were backups like Marcus Mariota and Mitchell Trubisky, who could be short-term answers. Or, I got it, let's have a reunion. Let's bring back good old Jameis Winston. Well, one thing that happened this year with Jameis Winston before he tore the ACL in his left knee in the Saints' 7th game of the season, he kind of learned to take what a defense has given him as opposed to what you saw in Tampa in that last year. Jameis Winston, 2019, the reason he went out and got Tom Brady, led NFL with 5,109 passing yards, became the first player in NFL history to have 30 interceptions and 30 touchdown passes in the same year. 33 touchdown passes, 30 interceptions. So the old Jameis, some of the old Jameis tendencies, Sean Payton was able to coax out of him. So let's just bring Jameis back. Wouldn't that be something? But it'll be interesting to see where Tampa goes for a quarterback. But one thing we do know is the NFC South is going to be wide open for 2022. Sean Payton's no longer the coach for the Saints. We don't know who that coach is going to be. We don't know what he's going to like as a quarterback. You have an aging Matt Ryan with the Falcons. The Carolina Panthers are in disarray. They don't have a quarterback. Sam Darnold, they picked up the fifth-year option when they traded for him. Right now, he would be the starter. Matt Rule's on the hot seat. Better win this year in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So it's going to be one of the weaker divisions in football. People talk about the NFC East being weak, but you had the Dallas Cowboys, who are a legitimate ball club and should be next year. The Eagles were a surprising playoff team because of a weak schedule. But this division, the NFC South, is going to look worse than, in my opinion, what the NFC East could be next year. But anyway, that's this week's Inside the Cap. That's going to wrap it up for this week. Thanks for listening. Don't forget, you can follow me on Twitter at Corey Joel. That's CORRYJOEL. And at my CBSSports.com column, Agents Take. So please check that out. And thanks for listening. We'll see you back here next time. Goodbye.